Today, we will be playing as 3 different androids, Connor, Kara, and Markus, whose fates will be determined by the choices each of them makes throughout this story. Most choices, and dialogues, have consequences. Spoilers ahead. Let's begin. We begin our story with Connor, an advanced prototype android sent by Cyberlife to handle a delicate hostage situation. A deviant android has taken a girl, Emma, hostage on a rooftop. Upon arrival, Connor begins surveying the scene, collecting evidence, and piecing together what led to the standoff. He learns the names of the family from a photo on a nearby table. Along the way, he makes small but impactful choices, like saving a fish flopping on the floor, which hint at his potential for empathy. The mother, who is clearly in distress, grabs Connor and begs him to save her child but is overcome with shock when she realizes he is an android and not a human. She is forcefully escorted out by the police. Connor finds Captain Allen, the human in charge, to be dismissive and unhelpful, forcing Connor to rely on his own investigative abilities. The captain is already impatient and demands that Connor take care of the situation. Connor begins to reconstruct the events leading up to the incident. He finds out through a video in Emma's room that the deviant's name is Daniel and that he was Emma's android caretaker. Connor finds a gun under the living room table and decides to keep it. Nearby, he discovers that the father was fatally wounded by Daniel because Daniel found out that the father had ordered another android to replace him. Connor suspects this may be what triggered Daniel's deviant behavior. Connor tastes blue blood on the ground from an android that matches Daniel's model. He has a unique ability to process information about other androids in this way. Connor steps out onto the balcony and is immediately shot at by Daniel, who makes demands to stay back or he will jump. He tries to empathize with Daniel, but Daniel doesn't buy it, claiming that it doesn't matter if Connor is an android because he works with the police and can't understand what he is going through. Daniel asks if Connor is armed, and Connor decides to lie about the gun he picked up earlier. Connor tries to help a nearby wounded officer on the ground, but is immediately commanded by Daniel to back away from him. As Connor inches closer, Daniel demands that the helicopter go away, and Connor agrees in an effort to calm him. Connor has slowly made his way to Daniel and decides he is close enough to neutralize him, saving Emma in the process and completing the mission. You see, in order for Emma to be saved, the correct choices had to be made throughout this chapter to achieve the desired outcome. Connor's, and others, decisions could spell the end for those we may consider friends, or enemies, throughout this story. In Chapter 2, we wake up as an unidentified android in a Cyberlife store after what appears to be a full system reboot. As we look around, look closely, you'll see that the android salesman comically sells copies of himself to human customers in the store. Then, a human salesman named Dan and a customer walk up to us. Dan mentions to the customer that this android was in very bad condition and was difficult to repair when the customer brought it in. The customer blames it on a car accident but looks suspicious as he says it. Dan asks if the customer has a name for us. The customer replies that his daughter has picked one out. It is then revealed to us that this android is the second main character we play as, named Kara. In Chapter 3, we are introduced to the third main android, Markus. He observes androids assisting humans and playing with children in the park. Androids have become an integrated part of everyday life for people living in Detroit, but not everyone is happy with their presence, as becomes apparent shortly. After crossing the street, Markus stops in front of a food vendor, who quickly becomes annoyed and angrily shoves him away. After listening to a human street performer playing a beautiful song on the guitar, Markus walks over to see an anti-android preacher lecturing the public about the dangers of androids. The preacher points at Markus, calling him a demon, and claiming he will be the one to destroy Detroit. Markus then continues to Bellini Paints, where he is picking up paint for his owner. Detroit has become so automated by androids that even the store clerk is an android, similar to the Cyberlife store where Kara woke up. He then heads to the bus station to return home, but before he can get there, he comes across a group of angry protesters chanting anti-android slogans. One of the protesters blocks Markus's path and sarcastically asks where he's going, calling him a tin can. The protesters begin harassing him, eventually pushing Markus to the ground and kicking him. A police officer steps in, warning the protesters that if they damage the android, he will have to fine them. Markus then makes his way to the bus stop, where all androids are required to ride in a designated compartment at the back of the bus, bringing the chapter to a close. In Chapter 4, the customer who had Kara repaired brings her back to his home in a dilapidated Detroit suburb, filled with unsightly houses and depressing features. Once inside, we learn that the father's name is Todd. He orders Kara to do the cooking, housework, and to take care of his daughter, Alice. Kara begins by cleaning the first floor, tidying up the mess Todd left behind while she was being repaired over the past couple of weeks. While doing laundry, she picks up the detergent but notices something unusual inside. She pulls out a small bag to analyze and discovers that it contains a drug called red ice. As she analyzes it, Todd sneaks up behind her, aggressively grabs her by the neck, and warns her to stay out of his business and not to piss him off. Alice witnesses the entire event from the kitchen. This is the first clear indication that Todd is abusive and involved with drugs. Kara continues with the housework by doing the dishes. She notices that Alice likes to follow her around the house. Todd demands a beer, and Kara brings it to him, but she becomes distracted watching the TV. Todd yells at her to get out of the living room. Kara tries to talk to Alice about her toy, but Alice doesn't respond. It's clear that Alice lives in an abusive household and tends to stay quiet to avoid upsetting her father. Kara goes upstairs to continue the housework. While tidying up Todd's room, she finds that he is on antidepressants, which may cause mood swings. As she puts the medication back in the drawer, she also discovers Todd's handgun. Kara finishes cleaning the room but becomes curious about the magazines Todd has been reading. She watches his TV for a moment, which reveals growing tensions between humans and androids, with androids now participating in sports and the unemployment rate soaring to 37%. Kara then heads to Alice's room. Alice is initially fearful and hides in her small blanket fort. Kara tries to be friendly with Alice while she cleans her room. After making her bed and tidying the room up, Kara tries to open a small chest but finds that it is locked. Kara decides to talk to Alice and asks if her mother is around, which upsets Alice. Kara then asks about Alice's interests and tells her she likes the name she picked out for her. Alice remains silent throughout the conversation but eventually gives Kara the key to the locked chest before running out of the room. Inside the chest, Kara finds photos and drawings of the family, some of which reveal a dark past. The drawings show that Todd has abused Alice and that he destroyed Kara, contradicting the car accident story he told the salesman at the Cyber Life store. Kara returns downstairs to find Todd becoming emotional and aggressive as he complains to Alice about the past. He apologizes, but Alice doesn't seem to accept it and looks to Kara instead, ending chapter 4. In chapter 5, Markus arrives home at an incredibly lavish mansion. Once inside, Markus activates some android birds in a nearby cage. Interestingly, even some of the pets in Detroit are androids. Markus walks upstairs and wakes up Carl Manfred, an accomplished and celebrated painter who is well known throughout Detroit. He gives Carl a brief update on the weather, but Carl does not want to get out of bed. As Markus administers Carl's medicine, Carl notices Markus's clothes and asks what happened. Markus explains that some protesters roughed him up, but that he is fine. Markus carries Carl to his wheelchair, as Carl is a paraplegic who requires around-the-clock care. As they make their way downstairs, Carl asks if there is any news from Leo. Markus says no and asks if he should call him, but Carl says not to bother. After serving Carl breakfast, Carl asks Markus to find something to do while he finishes eating. Markus notices the TV is broadcasting news about the United States and Russia, indicating that the world is on the brink of a possible Third World War. Markus decides to play an elegant song on the piano. Carl mentions that something has changed in the way he plays and that he has more humanity than most humans. Carl then remarks that one day he won't be there for Markus anymore, and that Markus will have to make his own choices, and not let anyone tell him who he should be in this world. Markus brings Carl into the studio, and Carl continues working on a rather large unfinished painting. Carl asks Markus for his opinion on the painting, but Markus says his programming does not allow him to critique art and that Carl would be a much better judge. Carl states that he has nothing left to say anymore, and that he's just an old man clinging to his brushes. He instructs Markus to try painting anything he wants. Markus is reluctant to do so but agrees. Markus decides to copy the large painting Carl was just working on and paints a perfect replica. Carl is not impressed with a copy of a painting and wants Markus to create something original. Carl has Markus close his eyes and imagine something he's never seen. Markus paints a rather dark image of someone shamefully covering their face. Carl is very impressed by it. Then, Carl's son Leo walks in, surprising Carl. The awkward tension in the room suggests Leo hasn't seen his father in some time. Leo begins acting suspiciously and asks Carl for cash. Carl asks him about the money he already gave him, but Leo avoids the question. Carl accuses Leo of being on drugs again. Leo responds angrily that he just needs money but doesn't explain why. Carl declines to give him any more money. This enrages Leo, who asserts that Carl loves Markus more than him, and that he would rather spend time with Markus instead of his own son. Leo redirects his anger toward Markus, asserting that he is just a machine while pushing him away. Leo claims his father never loved anyone, including him, and storms out of the room, ending chapter 5. In chapter 6, Connor begins by entering Jimmy's bar with the objective of locating a Detroit police officer, Lieutenant Hank Anderson. Connor is met with unwelcoming stares as he scans the faces of the customers. They insult him, telling him to go away and that androids are not allowed there. Eventually, Connor locates Hank at the bar having a drink. Connor introduces himself, telling Hank that Cyber Life sent him to help with a homicide case involving a deviant android that Hank had been assigned to earlier in the evening. Hank tells him he doesn't want any help, but Connor insists he's there to assist. Connor decides to be diplomatic and buys Hank a drink in an effort to convince him to begin investigating the case. Hank appreciates this, which warms him up to Connor, and he decides to bring him to the scene of the crime. Hank, still clearly not quite happy with his new android partner, tells Connor to stay out of his way during the investigation. Connor and Hank enter the house, finding the body of a man named Carlos Ortiz. It's clear to the police that Carlos has been dead for some time, as they comment on the terrible smell. Connor begins investigating numerous clues left around the house, including the murder weapon, which turns out to be a knife with no fingerprints, suggesting that the killer was an android. In the bathroom, Connor discovers that the android obsessively wrote the term RA9 all over the shower walls. A strange statue stands in the middle of the shower area, likely placed by the deviant. After examining all of the evidence, Connor pieces together the events that took place. He suggests to Hank that the victim, Carlos, attacked his android with a bat, which triggered a deviation in the android's behavior, causing it to grab a knife to defend itself. The deviant and Carlos fought into the living room, where Carlos tripped, allowing the android to jump on him and stab him 28 times. Hank agrees with Connor's theory but points out that it doesn't explain where the android went. Connor explains that the android was injured in the fight, causing therium to leak from its body. Therium is the name of the blue blood that powers the biocomponents of androids. Though invisible to humans after a short period, Connor is still able to trace it. He follows a trail of therium that leads to the attic. In a slow but intense search, he cautiously investigates the attic for the deviant. Something scurries along the back wall in front of Connor. It turns out to be the deviant. The deviant immediately claims he was only defending himself and insists that Carlos was going to kill him. He begs Connor not to alert the police, but Connor ignores his plea, calling for Hank, and ending chapter 6. In chapter 7, we return to Todd's house as Kara. Kara wakes Todd for dinner and he is already in a bad mood. As she serves the food and pours water for Todd and Alice, the tension begins to build as Todd slowly starts to become belligerent, once again complaining about the past and how androids ruined his life. He rants about how his wife left him because of his obviously negative characteristics and ran away with another man. He takes out his frustration on Alice, and Alice responds by running off to her room upstairs. Todd orders Kara to stay where she is, or he will damage her worse than the last time. As Todd paces around the living room, he fumes about his ex-wife again and how Alice needs to be taught a lesson, but not before taking a massive hit of red ice. He takes off his belt and slowly makes his way upstairs, ready to take his anger out on Alice. Now, the most critical moment for Kara has arrived. Kara hears Todd causing a commotion in Alice's room and decides she's finally had enough. Todd's behavior has triggered Kara to become deviant, allowing her to have free will. Surprised by her newfound freedom, Kara immediately heads upstairs. Kara remembers to stop by Todd's room to grab the gun she noticed when she was tidying up earlier in the day. Todd orders Kara to leave, but Kara refuses and says she wants him to leave Alice alone. Todd is initially confused that an android would want something, as that isn't supposed to be part of their programming. Todd slaps the gun from Kara's hands, and a fight ensues. Todd grabs Kara by her neck, but she successfully manages to break free. Kara desperately crawls for the gun on the floor across the room, firing a shot and neutralizing him. After a tense moment, stunned by what she has just done to him, she looks to Alice, who also appears stunned, but remains silent. Kara reaches her hand out to Alice, and Alice accepts. They run downstairs and out the front door. Outside, Kara sees a bus they can escape on and quickly makes her way to it. Kara still appears to be in shock from the events that just transpired. Kara and Alice don't say anything but comfort each other as the bus rides further into downtown Detroit, ending chapter 7. In chapter 8, Markus and Carl are returning from a cocktail party celebrating Carl's lifetime achievements in art. Carl tells Markus that he hates cocktail parties, complaining that nobody at the party really cares about art anymore, and that everyone is just trying to make money from it. They head to the living room, where Carl asks Markus to pour him some scotch, despite Markus warning him it's not good for his health. Carl notices that a light is on in the art studio and asks Markus if he left it on. Markus says he's sure he did not and calls the police, explaining that someone may have broken into the house. Carl decides he wants to investigate the art studio, where they find Leo rummaging through some of Carl's paintings. Carl demands that Leo back away, but Leo doesn't listen. He tells Carl that his paintings are worth a lot, and to consider them a down payment on his inheritance, claiming the paintings will soon be his anyway. Carl tells Markus to remove Leo from the property. Markus warns Leo not to make this difficult and demands that he leave, but this only makes Leo more aggressive. Carl tells Markus not to defend himself. Leo shoves and taunts him, baiting him into a fight. Now, we arrive at possibly the most critical moment for Markus. Leo's behavior has officially triggered Markus to become deviant. Like Kara, Markus pushes through the virtual wall safeguarding androids from deviancy, breaking his programming and acquiring free will in the process. Leo gets in Markus's face, and Markus decides to push him, causing Leo to slam the back of his head on the metal arm lift. Carl, in total shock, crawls over to Leo to console him but believes him to be dead. Markus is overwhelmed, attempting to process what he has just done. Carl turns to Markus, demanding that he leave the property or face being dismantled for harming a human. Markus claims that he has nowhere to go and stands there. As the police arrive, they mistake Markus for the perpetrator and shoot him, bringing an end to Chapter 8. In Chapter 9, Connor and Hank are in the police station's interrogation room, where they are interviewing the deviant they apprehended for the murder of his owner, Carlos Ortiz. The scene begins with Hank attempting to interrogate the deviant multiple times, but the deviant remains silent. Frustrated by the deviant's silence, Hank returns to the monitoring room, proclaiming that they're wasting their time and won't get anything out of him. Detective Gavin Reed suggests they could rough the deviant up since he's not human. Connor responds that such tactics won't work, as androids don't feel pain, they would only end up damaging him. He adds that deviants can self-destruct when subjected to excessive stress. Connor offers to take over the interrogation, and Hank agrees, reasoning they have nothing to lose. Connor's mission is to extract a confession, which requires carefully managing the deviant's stress levels. If the stress gets too high, the deviant may self-destruct. Too low, and he won't speak. Connor begins the interrogation, mostly using an aggressive approach, warning the deviant that if he remains silent, he'll be dismantled. Connor then threatens to probe the deviant's memory if he doesn't respond. This causes the deviant to finally react. He asks what's going to happen to him. Connor answers truthfully, explaining that he'll have to be dismantled so they can examine his biocomponents for inconsistencies. Still unwilling to confess, the deviant remains visibly distressed. In a last-ditch effort, Connor pushes once more. This time, the deviant finally speaks, confessing to the murder of Carlos. Hank is impressed that he was able to get the deviant to talk. The deviant explains that Carlos was abusive and that he experienced a sensation of fear, something androids aren't supposed to feel. Connor asks about RA9 and the statue found in the shower. The deviant replies that RA9 is the one who will save the androids, and that the statue was an offering to him. When asked who RA9 is, the deviant goes silent again. Having successfully obtained the confession, Connor prepares to leave. As officers move in to escort the deviant, he becomes fearful and agitated. Connor intervenes, warning them not to touch him, as it could trigger self-destruction. Detective Reed ignores Connor's warning, prompting Connor to step between the deviant and the officer to protect him. Hank appears to appreciate Connor's show of empathy. When Detective Reed draws his gun on Connor, Hank responds by pointing his weapon at Reed. They agree to let the deviant walk on his own to his jail cell. As the deviant walks past Connor, he whispers, "The truth is inside," bringing Chapter 9 to a close. In Chapter 10, Kara and Alice are now in downtown Detroit after Kara neutralized Alice's abusive father, Todd. After being kicked off the bus by a Metro employee, Kara analyzes the area for a place to stay. As they walk around, an android city worker asks if they are lost and tells them he knows of a place they can stay. They exchange information, but Kara thinks it's unreasonable since it's on the other side of town. Alice is cold, and Kara still looks like an android, so she decides to head to a nearby laundromat to check for new clothes. She notices a man sleeping in a chair, but he has dry clothes in a dryer. She begins taking the clothes, but Alice intervenes, saying that she is stealing. Kara proceeds with the theft anyway, which Alice disapproves of. They head to the motel across the street but stop before going inside, realizing they have no money to pay for the room and need to find $40. Kara sees an abandoned house but needs wire cutters to get through the fence. They head to a nearby convenience store to look for tools. The man at the front counter asks if they need help, but Kara declines, trying to keep a low profile. As she walks around the store, she sees a candy bar and decides to steal it as food for Alice later. She then grabs the wire cutters from a nearby shelf and decides to steal those too, but the man at the counter notices and demands she put them back. Kara pulls a gun on him, claiming they are desperate. She apologizes for her actions and demands he get on the ground. Unsurprisingly, Alice is upset, insisting that Kara is in the wrong. Kara commits fully to the robbery and takes money from the register. They head outside, where Alice berates Kara for the entire ordeal, further damaging their relationship. They return to the abandoned house and make their way through the fence. As Kara searches for a way in, she notices Alice has wandered off. Around the corner, a deviant android named Ralph is holding a knife to Alice. As Kara intervenes, Ralph insists that visitors are dangerous. He reveals his face, which is badly damaged from past abuse by humans that triggered his deviant behavior. Ralph apologizes, explaining that he no longer trusts anyone and has experienced hard times. Realizing Kara and Alice aren't dangerous, he offers them the house to stay in, which Kara accepts. Ralph is excited and brings them inside. Kara puts down the candy bar and wire cutters, then builds a bed and a small fire for Alice. Kara goes to speak with Ralph, who is obsessively carving RA9 into the walls. When she asks him what RA9 means, Ralph can't explain, claiming he doesn't know, but he continues carving anyway. Alice and Kara have an emotional conversation in which Alice says that all she ever wanted was a life like other girls. She tries to make sense of Todd's behavior, wondering if she wasn't good enough and saying she just wanted to be loved. Kara promises she will never leave her, which Alice appreciates. Kara begins to see Alice as her own child, and Alice warms back up to her. After a long night, they go to sleep, bringing an end to chapter 10. In chapter 11, Markus, after being shot by police who mistakenly thought he was the perpetrator at Carl's house, now lies face down in an android waste site. After rebooting, he analyzes himself to determine which parts he needs to replace. He begins crawling through a graveyard of destroyed but partially functioning androids. After replacing his legs, he makes his way through a tunnel of discarded androids. One grabs him, telling him there is a place where androids can be free, called Jericho, and passes him instructions to begin his search by going to the Ferndale monorail entrance. As Markus continues to look for new parts, he encounters many barely functioning androids, some even attempting to escape, only to fail. He replaces his therium regulator with one from a dead android, and retrieves an audio processor from another nearby android still clutching it in its hand. While searching for the last part, an android grabs Markus's leg, begging him to end his existence, saying he no longer wants to live. Markus decides to honor his last wish, and disconnects his therium regulator. Markus finds the last piece he needs, a new optical sensor, but a dump truck suddenly unloads a pile of unusable androids on top of him. After freeing himself from the pile, he installs the optical sensor. He then continues toward a climbable slope that leads out of the site. After climbing the slope, Markus experiences a moment of calm, even happiness, as the rain pours down on him. He rips out his LED processor light with a sharp piece of metal. Without it, it will be more difficult for humans to distinguish him from other androids. Officially back from the dead, Markus grabs a nearby jacket and heads off into the city, bringing chapter 11 to an end. In chapter 12, Connor meets with Amanda in a virtual world called the Zen Garden. Amanda is an AI created by CyberLife, whom Connor occasionally updates on the missions she assigns him. As Connor walks through the Zen Garden, he spots an unusual rock with a handprint that can be activated by androids. He activates it, but it does not appear to have any immediate effect. He makes his way to Amanda, with whom he has a seemingly trustworthy relationship. Amanda congratulates him on a job well done catching the deviant who committed murder in his previous mission. Amanda then asks what he thinks of Hank, and what he believes is the best approach to working with him. Connor responds that he finds Hank intriguing and believes a friendly approach will work best. However, Amanda disapproves of this answer, resulting in a downgrade of their relationship. Amanda tells Connor to go, as there is little time, but does not elaborate further. Connor exits the Zen Garden and heads to the police station to locate Hank. He finds Hank's desk, but Hank has not shown up to work yet. Connor decides to check in on the deviant, who claims he is about to be destroyed. Connor responds compassionately, but says there is nothing he can do. As Connor is leaving, the deviant begins banging his head against the wall, neutralizing himself. Connor returns to Hank's desk and finds him there, though Hank is not happy to see him. Hank's boss, Captain Fowler, calls Hank into a meeting, and Connor decides to listen in. They converse about how deviant android cases are appearing more frequently, and that Hank will be the lead investigator tasked with finding the link between them. Fowler and Hank get into an argument, during which Hank declares that he hates androids as much as anyone else and doesn't want the assignment. Fowler warns him to start investigating or risk being fired. Hank leaves the room in a rage. Connor tries to get on Hank's good side, but Hank remains silent. Connor reviews the case files and identifies a recent murder case they can investigate. Hank is still giving Connor the cold shoulder, so Connor attempts to motivate him again. This enrages Hank, causing him to grab and throw Connor against the wall, threatening him and damaging their relationship. A nearby officer gives Hank a lead on the case, to which Hank responds that he's on it, ending chapter 12. In chapter 13, Kara wakes up beside Alice in the abandoned house where they stayed overnight. After checking on Alice, and reviving the fire with some more wood, Kara heads into the kitchen and finds some items on a dilapidated oven, possibly left there by Ralph. She sees the money first and decides to steal it, leaving the other items where they are. Kara then goes upstairs to the bathroom to change her appearance. She first cuts her hair into a different style and changes the color. Then, she removes the LED processor from her temple in an effort to appear more human. As she leaves the bathroom, she notices Hank and Connor outside, setting up a perimeter with the police. Kara suspects that they must be searching for her and Alice. Hank reviews the evidence Kara has left behind, such as the stolen clothes from the laundromat and video footage of her robbery at the convenience store. Connor tells Hank he reviewed the store footage and saw Kara steal wire cutters, deducing that she was looking for a place to hide and may still be nearby. Hank and Connor head toward the abandoned house where Kara and Alice are currently hiding. Kara comes downstairs to find that Ralph has caught an animal for Alice to eat, creepily claiming that they can all be one big happy family. Kara respectfully declines, but Ralph doesn't take it well, insisting Alice isn't going anywhere until she eats. In an effort to prevent Ralph from becoming violent, Kara appeases him by agreeing to sit at the table. Ralph becomes excited and cooks the animal. He places it on the table, but Alice refuses to eat it. Ralph becomes increasingly angry. Realizing time is running out with Hank and Connor closing in, Kara pulls a gun on Ralph, demanding he back off and making an escape before Connor and Hank show up. Connor peeks through a window and sees an android inside. He enters and finds Ralph standing alone. Connor asks Ralph if any deviants have been there, and Ralph quickly snitches, shouting that they went out the back door. Connor begins his chase down the street. He sees Kara and Alice hopping a fence into an alleyway but arrives just a moment too late. This is the first time Connor and Kara come face to face. An officer points a gun at Kara, but Connor tells him to stand down, saying they need her alive. With no other option, Kara and Alice cross a busy highway. Connor wants to pursue them, but Hank orders him to stand down. Connor obeys, and Hank approves of the decision, improving their relationship. Kara and Alice have several close calls with traffic but successfully make it across the highway, bringing an end to chapter 13. In chapter 14, Markus is on his way to Ferndale Station to search for a place called Jericho, after escaping the android waste site and receiving instructions from another android on how to get there. As Markus rides the monorail, the television is running a story on Connor and how it's the first time an android is assisting the police in an active role during their investigations. When Markus arrives at Ferndale Station, he has a flashback to the android who gave him the information about Jericho's hidden location. Markus scans numerous murals across the city and parkours his way to an abandoned building. Once inside, he walks up the steps and discovers that Jericho is the name of a giant, abandoned cargo ship. He attempts to cross a bridge, but it collapses beneath him as he walks on it. He finds a new path via a ladder, making his way to a ledge where he dives into a flooded room inside Jericho. Markus grabs a flashlight and continues his search around the ship. He enters a dim, spacious room. As he makes his way across a metal platform, it collapses, causing him to fall to a lower floor. He regathers himself but finds numerous androids surrounding him. One android welcomes him to Jericho, ending chapter 14. In chapter 15, Connor and Hank head to one of Hank's favorite food trucks in downtown Detroit after their eventful stop at the police station. Connor approaches Hank and tries to reconcile with him, but Hank remains uneasy, telling Connor that they aren't buddies. After grabbing a burger and a drink from the unhygienic vendor, Connor provides Hank with statistics on how unhealthy his meal is. Hank responds that everyone has to die of something someday. Strangely, this lightens the mood and improves their relationship. Connor explains why androids become deviants, noting that while androids don't actually have feelings, their software can mutate in a way that gives them irrational instructions, leading to unpredictable behavior. Hank asks Connor if he has ever dealt with a deviant. Connor flashes back to the time he had to neutralize Daniel, successfully saving Emma in the process. Hank then asks if Connor knows anything about him. Connor confidently lists several facts, which Hank appears to appreciate. Connor receives a report of a nearby deviant android and suggests they go check it out. They arrive at a dilapidated apartment building. Connor knocks on the door, identifying them as police. When they hear someone moving inside, they decide to force entry. Hank clears the first hallway and breaks through the front door, finding a bunch of pigeons eating food off the floor, but no one home. Connor investigates clues to determine where the deviant may have gone. He finds a book behind a poster in the wall with strange writing in it that Connor doesn't seem to understand, but keeps as evidence. He also finds a forged driver's license using the name Rupert Travis. Connor tests a sample of the deviant's therium in the sink and finds the deviant's LED light. On the wall, the deviant has written RA9 repeatedly, prompting Connor to question the significance of this symbol. Connor continues searching and discovers that the deviant is still in the apartment. He checks the attic space above the living room, and the deviant falls on top of him before making a run for it. A chase ensues. If Connor doesn't keep up, the deviant will escape, so he takes several risky paths to stay within range. After running through a greenhouse and a small cornfield, Connor sees that Hank has intercepted the deviant, but is pushed off the building. As Hank dangles for his life, Connor chooses to save him, allowing the deviant to escape. This decision significantly improves Hank's opinion of Connor, who he now considers a friend. Hank assures Connor that letting the deviant go is okay, as they know what he looks like and can catch him another time. Hank turns to say something important to Connor but decides against it and walks away, ending chapter 15. In chapter 16, Markus finds himself surrounded by other androids after locating Jericho, a giant abandoned cargo ship where deviants live without humans. He meets 3 new deviants he will soon come to know. Josh, Simon, and North. Markus is not impressed with Jericho, explaining that hiding is not freedom and that standing around in the dark is no way to live. North tells Markus to see someone named Lucy, who might be able to help him. Markus speaks with a deviant who is on the brink of deactivation. She asks Markus if he knows what happens after death, saying she's about to find out. She asks Markus his name, and with her final words, tells him she was glad to meet him before shutting down for good. Markus meets with Josh, who tells him that if they don't get therium and biocomponents, none of the deviants will last much longer. They are slowly dying out over time. Markus scans some nearby CyberLife crates and determines the address of their origin. He goes to speak with North and asks her about her past. North hates this question, becoming resentful, claiming it doesn't matter and that he shouldn't care. Markus asks why no one has gone to get new parts, and North explains that it's too risky to leave Jericho. Markus speaks with another deviant who is in extremely rough shape. The deviant explains that he won't last much longer and that humans tied him to the back of a car, dragging him around for fun. Markus finds Lucy in a nearby room. She cauterizes his wound with a hot iron and gives him some therium to drink. Lucy grabs Markus's hand and cryptically tells him that his choices will shape the destiny of all androids. Markus finds Simon and tells him that he has a plan to steal spare parts from a CyberLife warehouse. Initially, there is pushback from Simon and Josh, who assert that it's too risky, but North chimes in, saying it's a good idea. Now, the deviants of Jericho begin paying attention to Markus's decisions regarding the future of Jericho. Simon and Josh eventually agree, bringing chapter 16 to an end. In chapter 17, Kara and Alice arrive at the house using the directions given to Kara by the android city worker back in downtown Detroit. After ringing the doorbell, a man answers. Kara asks if he is Zlatko, the one who helps deviant androids find safety. He initially denies it, but Kara persists. He lets them in and brings them into the living room. He asks Luther, another android he has helped, to take their jackets. Zlatko asks if Kara is deviant, to which she nods. He then asks about Alice, and Kara responds that she is human. They discuss Kara and Alice's future, and Zlatko suggests relocating to Canada, where there are no android laws. Kara likes the idea and says that's what she wants, but Zlatko explains that he must first remove her tracker, which all androids are equipped with at the time of manufacture. Zlatko brings them to the basement. As they descend, he asks them to excuse the mess, saying he needs a discreet place for helping other deviants since removing their trackers is illegal. Zlatko asks Kara to step into a machine that will remove her tracker, and she complies. As robotic arms hold Kara in place, Zlatko explains that trackers are no longer functional once an android becomes deviant, making the procedure unnecessary. He then reveals that deviants are naive, and he actually resets their memories and experiments on them once they arrive. He orders Luther to lock Alice in an upstairs room. Zlatko begins the memory reset process, saying it's for the best. Alice runs to Kara, but Kara's memory is already beginning to fade. Zlatko takes Alice upstairs after she bites him, and Luther tells Kara to meet him in the living room when ready. Kara tries several ways to escape, knocking over a vodka bottle to short-circuit the machine and pulling on wires, but she fails. Tragically, the machine resets her memory to its default state. Kara walks into the hall. An android arm grabs for her from a barred cell asking for help. She opens the door and walks inside. The androids in the cell are grotesquely disfigured from Zlatko's experiments. They realize Kara's memory has been wiped and beg her to remember who she is, otherwise, Alice will die. Kara heads upstairs, but pauses by a mirror, triggering a flashback to when she cut her hair at the abandoned house. She enters the living room, where Luther instructs her to take Zlatko's dinner upstairs. Kara walks into a room where Zlatko is dissecting another android. He tells her to set the meal down on a nearby table, then orders her to move an android corpse into the next room. This triggers another flashback to Todd's house, when he flipped a table in a rage during dinner with Alice, regaining some memory function. Zlatko tells Luther to bring Alice to him in 10 minutes. A timer begins counting down. Time is running out. After dropping off the android corpse, Kara notices RA9 written on the wall, triggering another flashback to the abandoned house where Ralph was carving the same message. Kara continues regaining her memory through familiar sights. Kara finds a pipe similar to one Todd used, triggering another flashback of him smoking red ice. Finally, she fully regains her memory. She remembers her name, and more importantly, that Alice is in danger. She frantically searches the house, going room to room. In the hallway, she runs into Luther but pretends her memory is still gone to avoid suspicion. Luther apologizes about Alice, but Kara remains silent. Kara finally finds the room where Alice is locked. They share a moment before Kara says it's time to go. They sneak out the door and overhear Zlatko ordering Luther to bring Alice to him. Kara and Alice hide in a room with an active fireplace. They hear Luther yelling that Alice is missing. In a desperate move, Kara decides to light the house on fire. With only moments to escape, they flee into the corridor and run downstairs. Zlatko fires a shotgun at them. With Luther close behind, Kara heads out the back door. Alice trips, and Kara picks her up, urging her to run, but Alice refuses to leave her. Zlatko and Luther catch up to them outside. Zlatko threatens them with a shotgun, but in a critical moment, Luther decides he's had enough of Zlatko and takes his gun, protecting Kara and Alice. Zlatko turns and sees a terrifying sight. The disfigured deviants he experimented on have come to stop him. They get their revenge, beating him mercilessly. With Zlatko finally out of the way, Luther apologizes to Kara and Alice, saying that something changed in him when he saw Alice willing to risk her life for Kara. He adds that while they have no reason to trust him, he wants to protect them and knows someone who can genuinely help them cross the border into Canada. Kara decides to trust Luther, accepting his offer, bringing Chapter 17 to a tense and emotional end. In Chapter 18, Connor reports to Amanda about his last mission, where he and Hank investigated a deviant named Rupert. They chased him through Detroit but ultimately failed to apprehend him, choosing instead to save Hank after he was pushed from a rooftop. Amanda reviews some details about the case and is displeased that Connor failed to catch Rupert. However, Connor's pragmatic response seems to reassure her, as he states that perhaps he should be replaced if he continues to fail his missions. They go over a few more details, including one critical observation Connor has made. Deviants consistently write RA9 wherever they go. Amanda assigns Connor a new mission, reiterating that he doesn't have much time. Connor promises to solve the mystery of why androids continue to become deviant. Connor then goes to Hank's house to discuss the next case. After knocking and ringing the doorbell without a response, he begins looking for a way inside. He searches around the house and eventually finds Hank passed out on the kitchen floor. Connor breaks a window to enter, getting up close with Hank's dog, Sumo. He analyzes Hank and determines that he is in an ethylene coma due to excessive alcohol consumption. Connor wakes Hank, who is not pleased and yells at Connor to leave him alone. He places Hank in the bathtub and turns on the water, which seems to rouse him. Connor suggests that Hank drop the case since he never seems focused, and urges him to prioritize their missions. He teases Hank, sarcastically explaining that a man was found dead at an android sex club, and that others will have to solve it without them, sparking Hank's interest in the case. While Hank changes into better clothing, Connor investigates the apartment to learn more about him. He questions Hank about the gun on the floor next to the alcohol where he had passed out. Hank shouts from the bathroom, readily admitting that he was playing Russian roulette while drinking whiskey. Connor points out that Hank is lucky, as the next shot would have killed him. Connor also uncovers a key detail about Hank's past. He finds a picture of Hank's son, Cole, where he learns Cole has been deceased for several years. As they leave for the club, Hank tells Sumo to be good, ending Chapter 18. In Chapter 19, Markus, Simon, Josh, and North arrive at a CyberLife harbor warehouse, acting on Markus's plan to steal therium and other biocomponents for the deviants of Jericho. They stealthily make their way through the area, climbing over numerous shipping containers while avoiding guards and security drones. As they approach the warehouse, they are stopped when a drone flies by. Markus offers to take care of it, jumping onto the drone and disabling it. The entire group admires Markus's courage. As they open some nearby containers, a security android spots them, informing them that they are trespassing and that he will notify security. A human worker is heard nearby, shouting for the security android and wondering where he went. Markus decides to grab the android, covering its mouth and passing information to it, saying they need his help. The human guard investigates the containers, talking to himself about his bad luck with a broken drone and the missing security android. After a close call, the group continues taking materials from the crates. Markus opens a large crate nearby and finds androids inside. Deviant androids have the ability to pass their deviant behavior to other androids by touch, similar to how a virus spreads. Markus uses this ability and decides to free the androids. The group again approves of Markus's decision, raising his status to respected within Jericho. The security android Markus grabbed earlier, now a deviant himself, asks to come with them. Initially, there is pushback from North and Simon, who say it's too risky, while Josh agrees to bring him to Jericho. Markus accepts, bringing him along with the other androids he just awakened. This decision is not well received by Simon and North, but Josh supports it, further elevating Markus's status with Jericho. Following this, the security android provides them with information on how to obtain even more biocomponents and therium, telling them that the autonomous trucks are full of supplies and can be manually driven with a key located in a nearby control station manned by 2 human guards. Markus decides it's worth the risk. Josh disagrees, but North and Simon support the idea, claiming it's an opportunity that can't be missed. Markus sneaks into the control station and searches for a way to distract the guards. He notices a nearby electrical panel that he can short-circuit to cause a blackout. He grabs a screwdriver and jams it into the panel. As the guards are distracted by the blackout, Markus grabs the key and escapes through the bathroom window back to the group. Markus drives the truck to the control checkpoint. With the guards still distracted, they face no resistance and head back. Inside Jericho, Markus receives praise for his actions. The deviants of Jericho now admire him, and both North and Simon begin to consider Markus a friend. Markus gives a speech about freedom, declaring that he and all androids are alive, and that the deviants must act to secure a better future, bringing Chapter 19 to an end. In Chapter 20, Connor and Hank head to the Eden Club, an android sex business, for a mission assigned to Connor by Amanda involving a deviant who may be responsible for yet another murder. As they enter, Connor is caught staring at an android that is the same model as North, and Hank yells at him to hurry up. They make their way to the crime scene and find Detective Reed already there. Hank and Reed are not happy to see each other. Reed asserts that there is nothing to investigate, claiming that the victim was simply playing too rough with his rented android, implying cardiac arrest. Hank disagrees, prompting Reed to angrily storm out and shoulder check Connor, demonstrating the growing tension between them. Connor begins by examining the female android, known as a Tracy, by tasting her therium and noting that she is non-functional. He then examines the victim, discovering that he did not die from cardiac arrest as Reed suggested, but that he was strangled. Hank asks Connor to try to reactivate the Tracy. Connor responds that if he can, they will have very limited time before she shuts down again. Connor successfully reactivates the Tracy, who is clearly traumatized. With extremely limited time, he begins interviewing her, asking if she killed the victim, to which she responds no. She tells Connor that the victim was hitting her repeatedly and that there was a second Tracy. Before Connor can get any more answers, the Tracy shuts down. This continues the recurring theme of trauma affecting android programming and contributing to deviancy. Connor suspects that the deviant may still be in the building, as she wouldn't go unnoticed dressed the way she is if she had exited. He probes the memory of several androids, following the path the second Tracy took, which leads to a staff door. The door leads to the warehouse in the back. Connor searches a group of androids, noticing that one of the Tracys is different from the others. Connor and Hank are ambushed by two Tracys, and a tense fight ensues. Connor manages to defend himself, and the fight eventually spills outside. Hank is thrown against a wall and drops his gun. The Tracys attempt to flee over a fence, but Connor catches up and defends himself 1 against 2. After being thrown back, Connor grabs Hank's gun. One of the Tracys charges at him, but Connor decides not to shoot, sparing her, although he is knocked to the ground. The Tracy responsible for the murder begins to tell her story about the traumatizing event with the victim, explaining that she strangled him but didn't intend to kill him. The Tracys flee. Connor and Hank decide not to pursue them. Their relationship is significantly improved, with Hank stating that maybe it's better this way, ending Chapter 20. In Chapter 21, after escaping Zlatko's house, Kara and Luther are driving down a snowy road toward a human family Luther heard about, one that helps deviant androids cross the border into Canada, where there are no android laws. Kara questions Luther, wondering if this could be another trap, but Luther doesn't think so. After some time driving, the car breaks down, forcing them to stop. Kara notices a business sign up ahead for a place called Pirates Cove, an abandoned amusement park. They agree to walk there to find shelter. As they make their way inside, Kara searches for a suitable place to stay. In the middle of her search, she examines a frozen android that suddenly powers on, repeating a welcome slogan for the park before quickly shutting down again. Luther calls out to Kara, telling her he found a spot. He breaks down the door, to which Kara responds that it's not going to get any better than this. Luther begins collecting materials for a fire. As Kara gathers items to make a bed for Alice, she notices RA9 written repeatedly all over a wall. After grabbing a curtain and a pillow, she makes Alice's bed. Alice is staring at an advertisement poster for the park, which shows a happy family enjoying their time there. Kara walks over and gently puts her hand on Alice's shoulder, strengthening the trust between them. Alice asks Kara if they'll ever be like the family in the poster someday. Kara replies that they could be, once they make it to Canada, where Alice could go to school and Kara could find work. As Kara puts Alice to sleep, she makes up a bedtime story with a happy ending. Alice complains that all stories end happily and that it's not realistic, though she still appreciates that Kara tried. After Luther says goodnight to Alice, he and Kara have a conversation. Kara asks Luther what RA9 means. Luther explains that RA9 is believed to be the first android to awaken and that he will set all androids free one day. Kara expresses doubt, wondering if RA9 is just a made-up story, but Luther insists he will come. Luther then asks Kara if she's ever noticed anything about Alice. Kara responds with confusion, but before the conversation can continue, androids begin breaking into the building. Luther draws his gun, while Kara questions their motives. The android in front says they come in peace and explains that they are all named Jerry. Jerry tells them they used to work at the park and are excited to see a little girl, but notice she looks sad. He says they have something fun for her and leads them outside to a carousel ride. Kara puts Alice on the seahorse and starts it up. The Jerrys are thrilled to see Alice having fun. Kara tells Luther she hasn't seen Alice this happy before, and Luther responds that she hasn't had much to smile about lately, bringing chapter 21 to an end. In chapter 22, Connor and Hank are at a children's park after investigating the Eden Club and choosing not to pursue the Tracys. As Connor approaches Hank, Hank mentions that he used to come here a lot before but stops midway through his sentence. Connor asks, "Before what?" but Hank dodges the question. Connor then asks a personal question about the photo of Hank's son, Cole, but Hank resents that he brought him up. Connor reviews the facts about their investigation, explaining that the deviants have almost nothing in common, citing that they are different models and were manufactured in different locations. Hank asserts that there must be a link, and Connor brings up the only one they've found. All the deviants are obsessed with RA9. He suggests it might be something the deviants invented, as it's not part of their original programming. Hank brings up the Tracys, expressing confusion about how two androids could love each other despite not being programmed to. Connor explains that androids can simulate feelings, but they remain machines and can't truly feel anything. Hank then questions Connor directly, pointing out that he looks and sounds human, and asks him what he really is. Connor replies that he's a machine designed to accomplish his tasks. Hank becomes aggressive, asking why Connor didn't shoot the Tracys even though it was his mission. Connor responds that he chose not to but can't explain why. Hank pulls his gun on Connor and asks if he's afraid to die. Connor gives a logical answer, saying it would be regrettable to be interrupted before finishing the investigation. Hank again questions what will happen if he pulls the trigger. Connor steps closer to the barrel of the gun and tells Hank that he's never going to shoot him, which angers Hank. Hank asks one final question. How is he supposed to know that Connor isn't a deviant? Connor says he performs self-tests regularly and always knows exactly what he is, and what he isn't. Because Hank considers Connor a friend, he lowers the gun. Connor asks where he's going. Hank replies that he's going to get more drunk and that he needs to think, ending chapter 22. In chapter 23, Markus sits alone on a street after their grand heist at a CyberLife harbor warehouse, where they acquired biocomponents for the deviants of Jericho. Markus witnesses a human cruelly mistreating his android after it drops a bag of groceries. Inspired by a magazine cover featuring Stratford Tower, home to major Detroit news networks, Markus forms a new idea. He returns to Jericho to find North, Simon, and Josh, repairing weak and dysfunctional deviants. He proclaims that the deviants can no longer remain silent and must declare their freedom openly to humans. Initially, the group is hesitant, but Markus convinces them of his plan, to sneak into Stratford Tower, hack into the broadcast network, and deliver a televised message demanding android rights and freedom. Markus heads to Stratford Tower, where he must clear security. He approaches an android at the front desk, claiming he has an appointment with someone named Mr. Peterson. He hands over his identification, but as she takes it, Markus grabs her hand and discreetly transfers information requesting her assistance. She clears his ID, and he proceeds to the elevator. Upon reaching the 47th floor, Markus enters a bathroom, where a dead drop containing an android work uniform is hidden above the ceiling in one of the stalls. Now disguised as an employee android, Markus discreetly grabs another android, transferring information to obtain a security card. He then heads to the fire escape and lets in North, who is also disguised as an employee android. After creating a distraction to divert security from the server room, Markus cuts a hole in a window and reaches a suspended scaffold. They climb up to the top floor and enter a room still under construction. Markus opens the elevator and lets in Simon and Josh. They make their way down a hallway toward the main broadcast room, but two security guards block their path. Josh suggests avoiding the killing of any humans, while North argues that their cause outweighs human lives. Markus chooses to deceive the guards, avoiding bloodshed. He pulls a gun on them, knocks them out, and hides their bodies behind a desk. The group takes the guards' weapons and prepares an ambush. They enter the broadcast room. After removing the android employees from the broadcast room, a human employee attempts to flee, and Markus chooses to shoot him. Now, a critical moment has arrived. North warns Markus to choose his words carefully, as they will shape the future for all androids. Markus disables his skin, and Josh begins the broadcast. At last, Jericho acknowledges Markus as their leader for his courageous actions, and he begins his speech by declaring that androids are no longer slaves and it is time for them to rise up. His message is resolute and unwavering, demanding an end to android slavery and the recognition of their civil and property rights. He concludes his speech warning that no human will live in peace until androids are free. After the broadcast, the group quickly escapes via the roof access, where North congratulates Markus for making history. As they gear up with parachutes, the police burst through the door, forcing the group to jump from the roof. News stations across the country begin broadcasting Markus's demands, reporting that one human was killed during the invasion of the broadcast room. Newscasters question whether this was an isolated incident and whether android technology now poses a national security threat, with one anchor claiming the broadcast is a declaration of war. The message sends shockwaves through Detroit, turning public opinion hostile against the androids, ending Chapter 23. In Chapter 24, after an intense conversation with Hank by the river, Connor goes to speak with Amanda to update her on his mission progress involving deviant androids. Amanda asks Connor to share what he has discovered. Connor complains about Hank, saying he's problematic and struggles with psychological issues that cloud his judgment during their investigations. Amanda notices that Connor seems lost. He responds by saying he thought he knew what to do, but things aren't going as planned, a response Amanda clearly dislikes. She then asks Connor about the Tracys at the Eden Club and why he didn't shoot them, despite having his gun ready. Connor can't explain, simply telling her he doesn't know why, which further damages his standing with Amanda. Amanda warns that Connor may be replaced if progress isn't made. Connor replies that he would understand. She tells him to go and reminds him that time is running out. Later, Connor and Hank arrive at the Stratford Tower to investigate Markus's broadcast and how the deviant group gained access. After exiting the elevator, an officer explains that the deviants knew the building well and were highly organized. Hank and Connor are then introduced to Special Agent Perkins, who works with the FBI. Perkins is extremely rude, even chuckling at the irony of an android investigating other androids. He also questions why Hank would want an android partner after what happened in his past. Hank immediately dislikes Perkins. Connor begins his investigation by watching Markus's broadcast. Hank asks if Connor thinks Markus is RA9. Connor explains that deviants believe RA9 will set them free, which appears to be Markus's objective, but he remains unsure if Markus is RA9. Connor scans Markus, discovering that he is a prototype android gifted to Carl, his former owner, by Elijah Kamsky, the founder of CyberLife. When Hank asks if he found any details about Markus, Connor says no, withholding the information and causing Hank to grow suspicious. Connor checks the camera footage and notes that the deviants didn't break in. He's surprised, realizing that anyone monitoring the hallway cameras could have easily stopped them from entering the room. Connor turns a chair and discovers that an android, likely a deviant, was monitoring the cameras and allowed the others entry. An officer mentions that the android employees are being stored in the kitchen, so Connor decides to interrogate them. He scans them continuously, watching for any reactions as he questions them. After some time, Connor notices that the android on the left keeps looking at him. He focuses on that one, threatening it with destruction and urging it to confess. When none of the androids respond, Connor decides to probe the memory of the one on the left. As he begins the probe, the deviant attacks, ripping out Connor's therium regulator and stabbing his hand into the countertop. Connor pulls the knife from his hand, crawls to retrieve his regulator, snaps it back into place, and rushes after the deviant, who is heading toward the elevator. Connor alerts everyone, but the deviant grabs a gun from a guard. Connor reacts quickly, grabbing a weapon from a nearby FBI agent and neutralizing the deviant before he can open fire. Hank compliments Connor on his great shot, but Connor says he wanted the deviant alive. Hank reassures Connor, saying he saved many human lives, including his own, which he greatly appreciates, ending Chapter 24. In Chapter 25, after spending the night at Pirates Cove with the Jerrys, they arrive at Rose's farm, the place Luther heard about that helps androids cross the border into Canada. When no one answers the front door, Kara heads to the backyard and finds a young man chopping wood. Kara asks if Rose is there, but the young man says she doesn't want to talk. Seconds later, Rose appears from the greenhouse and introduces herself. Kara explains that she was told Rose could help her. She raises her hand to disable her skin, revealing that she is a deviant. Rose brings everyone inside and tells her son, Adam, to take Alice and the others upstairs to the spare bedroom. As Kara prepares Alice for bed, Alice asks why humans hate them and why no one is willing to negotiate. Kara responds that it must all be a misunderstanding, and that humans just need time to understand what androids really are. Kara kisses Alice on the forehead, which Alice enjoys. Luther, who also appreciates the moment, seems to relish the opportunity to be a family man whenever he can. While Luther watches over Alice, Kara heads downstairs to discuss their options with Rose. Rose asks why a deviant is running around the city with a little girl. Kara tells her the full story, explaining Todd's abusive behavior, which changed something inside her and led her and Alice to run away. Kara asks Rose to help them get to Canada, but Rose is pessimistic about their chances. She explains that it's incredibly risky and suggests it's better for them to stay with her until the rampant deviant situation calms down. Kara refuses, insisting that they need to cross the border. Someone calls for Rose. They all walk into the laundry room, where they find that a deviant named Mary has just shut down. Kara turns to see Alice and Luther behind her. Alice walks over to the deactivated deviant, curious about what happened, and shares a quiet moment with her. They return to the kitchen to find Adam yelling at Rose about harboring deviants, warning that it could land them in prison. Rose refuses to listen, insisting that deviants are not machines, claiming they are alive. Adam strongly disagrees, saying he won't risk prison for them. After Adam storms off, Rose explains that she is leaving to see about getting Kara and the others into Canada that night. Shortly after Rose leaves, the doorbell rings. Adam exclaims that it's the police and begins to panic. Kara quickly hides any evidence of androids. Kara answers the door but forgets to close the laundry room door where the other deviants are, distracting her from properly greeting the officer, which the officer finds suspicious. He asks to come in, and they let him. The officer starts looking around the house, asking if there are any androids or deviants. Kara lies and says there are none. He then begins questioning a nervous Adam, but Kara intervenes, explaining that Adam has been working all day and needs rest. Just as the officer is about to leave, the deviants in the laundry room make noise. The officer asks about it, and Kara lies again, saying it's just the washing machine. Satisfied with his search, the officer leaves, and everyone is relieved. Luther and Alice come downstairs, with Alice now considering Kara her family and Luther becoming trusted. Shortly after, Rose returns, and tells Kara to prepare as they are leaving that night, bringing chapter 25 to an end. In chapter 26, Markus and his team return to Jericho after their daring infiltration of the broadcast tower, where Markus made a public demand for android rights. As they watch the news reports about the broadcast, North and Josh get into an argument. Josh insists that violence isn't the answer, while North disagrees, arguing that Markus's bold message was a positive step for the android movement and that violence is the only way to make humans take them seriously. When Markus enters, he unveils a new plan to attack CyberLife stores and convert as many androids as possible. They split into teams, with Markus and North partnering up. As they emerge from a sewer hatch, Markus declares that this will be a night their people will remember forever. They arrive at a CyberLife store, where Markus begins by converting nearby android workers, making them become deviants and sending them to Jericho with coordinates. Looking through the store window, Markus spots a security alarm. He first takes down a nearby security drone patrolling the area, a move that North greatly admires, strengthening their relationship. Next, Markus heads to a nearby construction site where two androids are working near the store's network access. He converts them and disables the store alarm, again earning North's admiration. Further down the street, Markus spots a truck they can use to break into the store. He converts more android workers and blocks off the road with a construction sign. They steal the truck and drive it through the store's front window. Once inside, Markus goes from group to group, converting a large number of androids. He notices North staring at another android that looks exactly like her. Markus asks if she's okay, but North ignores the question. Standing on the counter, Markus gives a speech, telling the newly freed deviants that they are no longer slaves to humans. He invites them to join him in Jericho and fight for android rights. The deviants rally behind him, shouting their support, greatly boosting his relationship with both North and Jericho. Markus walks outside and declares it's time to send a message to the humans. He chooses a violent protest, toppling a statue and proclaiming they will never be slaves again. North continues to admire his choices. Deviants continue to destroy nearby property, but the sound of approaching police sirens causes them to scatter. North tells Markus the humans will have no choice but to listen now, but he warns that fear only feeds hatred. North replies she would rather have hatred than indifference, then makes her escape. As security drones spot Markus, he hears gunfire down the street. He runs to the scene and finds North kneeling over a fallen deviant, claiming the police slaughtered them. Walking through a road strewn with the bodies of dead deviants, Markus finds a crowd of deviants surrounding two police officers on their knees. The deviants demand justice, and hand Markus one of the officers' guns. One officer begs for his life, but in a critical moment, Markus chooses revenge and ends them both, declaring that no crime against an android shall go unpunished, again winning North's approval. As Markus walks away, news broadcasts are shown reporting major damage, fires across the city, and the deaths of the two police officers. Public opinion plummets to hatred, with widespread condemnation. The media declares the attack an act of terrorism and states that national security is now under threat, ending chapter 26. In chapter 27, Connor and Hank arrive at Elijah Kamsky's house to search for more answers after their eventful investigation at the Stratford Tower. As Connor meets with Hank, he notices that Hank seems off. Hank informs Connor that a police officer named Chris was on patrol the previous night during the Deviant riots, where he was attacked and executed by his own weapon in cold blood by a Deviant. As they walk to the front door, Hank explains that Kemsky invented the first android to pass the Turing test and that he is the founder of Cyberlife, saying Kemsky should have answers. An android, named Chloe, invites them in. As they wait for Chloe to inform Kemsky, Connor analyzes a photo on the wall of Kemsky and Amanda standing next to each other and is surprised to learn that Kemsky graduated from the same university where Amanda was an artificial intelligence professor. More importantly, he discovers that Amanda died in 2027. Hank and Connor meet with Kemsky, and Hank mentions that they are investigating deviants and would like to know more about them. Kemsky gives a vague speech about how humanity's greatest achievement threatens to be its downfall, and that machines are superior to humans. Connor mentions that deviancy spreads similarly to a virus and asks if Kemsky knows why. Kemsky remains cryptic, which prompts Hank to become frustrated, saying that there is little time and the deviants are planning a revolution. Kemsky turns his attention to Connor, questioning which side he's on, but Connor refuses to answer. Kemsky brings Chloe over and explains that he has a test for androids, called the Kemsky test, questioning whether androids are truly just machines, or if they can think for themselves. He pulls a gun from a drawer and hands it to Connor, telling him he wants him to answer that question. He instructs Connor to shoot Chloe if he believes she is just a machine, or to spare her if he believes she is more than that. Kemsky promises to answer their questions if Connor shoots Chloe, asking whether their investigation is more important than the life of an android. Hank becomes angry and tells Connor not to shoot, but Kemsky continues to pressure him. In one of Connor's most critical moments, he decides not to shoot Chloe. Kemsky finds his decision fascinating, claiming that Cyberlife's last chance to save humanity is himself a deviant. Connor denies being a deviant, but Kemsky argues otherwise, stating that Connor saw a living being in Chloe and showed empathy, something androids were not programmed to do. Kemsky warns that a war is coming and pressures Connor to choose between fighting for the androids or the humans. Hank decides it's time to leave, as they aren't getting any answers. Just as they are leaving, Kemsky has one final word. He mentions that he always leaves an emergency exit in his programs, saying you never know. Outside, Hank questions Connor, asking why he didn't shoot, pointing out that it was their chance to learn something, but that Connor inexplicably let it go. Connor, unable to explain his decision, apologizes to Hank. Hank says that maybe Connor did the right thing, a decision he seemed to greatly appreciate, ending chapter 27. In chapter 28, Markus is spending time alone on a rooftop after the violent riots downtown. North comes to check in on him and notices that Markus seems preoccupied. Markus responds that he hates feeling good about enjoying the power that comes with being violent. North asks him about his past, and Markus responds truthfully. He tells her about caring for Carl and explains that Carl was like a father to him, using his past as an example to show that humans and androids can coexist. Markus then asks North about her past, but she refuses to talk about it. He brings up the android that looks exactly like her at the Cyberlife store, saying it reminds her of her past. Markus insists that they need to be honest with each other if they are going to work together. Because North considers Markus her companion, she opens up and tells her story. She explains that she was manufactured as a sex android designed for human pleasure. One day, after being rented out, she experienced an unexplainable moment where she couldn't take her life anymore, so she strangled the human and ran away. Markus physically connects with North, and they share their memories. North officially becomes Markus's lover, and comments on his memories of Carl and how the police shot Markus, leaving him for dead in an android waste site. Markus tells her he saw the memory of the human she strangled and says it felt like he was really there. Spooked by the interaction, North runs off. Some time later, the group is downtown, debating Markus's plan to lead a demonstration through the streets of Detroit while converting androids to gain numbers for Jericho. Nearby, he converts a worker android and asks him to block the street with his work truck. Markus begins leading a peaceful protest, walking through the street while calling on many androids to join him. As they march, Jericho's numbers grow, and they change LED signs to display their new symbol. Further down the street, a lone police officer demands that they disperse. He points his gun at them, but the newly converted deviants continue walking. The officer has no choice but to let them pass, calling for backup as the deviants chant slogans. The police arrive, with a riot squad blocking their way. The riot commander demands that they disperse immediately or face open fire. Markus tries to reason with them, but the commander gives them one last chance. North tells Markus they have more numbers and should attack. Josh vehemently disagrees, saying that an attack will start a war and they should demonstrate their non-violence, even if it means sacrificing themselves. Simon partly agrees with Josh but argues that sacrificing themselves won't change anything. Markus raises his hand, signaling an all-out attack and charges the riot police. The police open fire, and a large-scale fight ensues. During the violence, Markus neutralizes numerous officers, and North is shot in the chest. After many deaths on both sides, the police retreat, signaling a victory for the deviants. Markus surveys the street, now filled with bodies. He finds a deviant in rough shape. The deviant asks if they won before permanently deactivating. Public opinion of androids drops to an all-time low, ending chapter 28. In chapter 29, after failing to get any answers from the Kamsky interview, Connor updates Amanda on his mission progress. Amanda, who has grown increasingly distrustful of Connor over time, explains that the country is on the brink of civil war and that humans have no choice but to destroy all androids. Connor mentions he thought Kamsky had answers but realizes he was wrong. This displeases Amanda, who implies Kamsky may have had the answers they were looking for but Connor chose not to ask. Connor argues that there was no reason to shoot the Chloe android to get those answers, further degrading Amanda's trust in him. Connor brings up the photo of Amanda and Kamsky, prompting Amanda to defensively explain that Kamsky chose someone familiar looking as the interface for his program because she was once his mentor. Connor then points out he's not a unique model and demands answers about how many other Connors exist, but she doesn't answer, further straining Amanda's trust. He accuses Amanda of withholding information about the deviants, again avoiding the question, which irritates her even more. She tells him he is the only one who can prevent civil war and warns that this is his last chance. Connor exits the Zen garden and finds himself back at the police station, where Captain Fowler is informing Hank that he's off the case and the FBI is taking over. Hank is furious, arguing that they need more time and are close to solving the case. Fowler insists there's nothing he can do, effectively ending their investigation and announcing that Connor will be sent back to Cyberlife. At Hank's desk, they discuss what to do next. Hank makes a bold statement, suggesting they might be on the wrong side of the issue and that maybe the androids deserve their freedom. Connor disagrees, saying that if the deviants rise up, it will lead to chaos. Hank brings up Connor's decision not to shoot Chloe at Kamsky's house, suggesting Connor has human emotions such as empathy. Connor denies this, claiming he acted out of logic, not emotion. He then consoles Hank about his past, encouraging him to overcome the tragic events that have affected him, something Hank seems to appreciate. Special Agent Perkins arrives to collect the evidence. Connor becomes desperate, pleading with Hank for help in solving the case and asking for a chance to find a lead before Perkins takes the evidence away. He begs Hank to distract Perkins for at least 5 minutes. Although reluctant, Hank agrees as he still considers Connor a friend, and gives him the key to the evidence room. Hank walks over to Perkins and assaults him, throwing him against the wall into the ground. As Connor heads into the evidence room, Detective Reed appears, demanding to know what he's doing. Connor tricks Reed by saying he's registering the last of his evidence and then leaving. Reed believes him and walks away. When Connor reaches the evidence room, he realizes Hank forgot to give him the password. Fortunately, Connor correctly guesses Hank's rather unusual password. With limited time, Connor begins his mission to locate Jericho using all the evidence they've collected. He starts by examining Rupert's diary, but because he saved Hank instead of chasing Rupert, the deviant escaped, and Connor is unable to locate the decryption key. He then examines the statue from the Carlos Ortiz case, breaking it open to find a note indicating that Jericho is near the Ferndale station. This gives him the option to scan the memories of the deviants to narrow the search. He takes a component from one deviant to reactivate Daniel, the deviant who held Emma hostage. Daniel wakes up and immediately accuses Connor of lying to him when they first met. Connor lies again, claiming he can repair Daniel and give him his freedom if he shares Jericho's location. Daniel insists he knows nothing about Jericho and tells Connor he will pay for what he did to him. Connor deactivates Daniel and scans his memory, confirming Daniel was telling the truth. Connor then reactivates the deviant he shot during Markus's infiltration of the Stratford Tower broadcast room. The deviant, appearing blind, refuses to provide information, even after Connor tries to trick him by pretending to be a fellow deviant. Connor scans the deviant's memories and finally uncovers the location of Jericho. He manages to leave the evidence room just before Perkins arrives. Perkins realizes someone has been tampering with the evidence and sounds the alarm. Connor escapes, ending chapter 29. In a critical chapter 30, Kara is riding in a car to the Canadian border with Rose, Luther, and Alice, after spending some time at Rose's farm. They witness police executing an android, and Rose explains that raids have been happening all over the city. They arrive at Rose's location, where she tells them they need to go to an old cargo ship called Jericho and seek help from Markus. She urges them to be on the last bus that leaves at midnight. Rose gives Kara a little money and says to meet her brother in Ontario, where they can hide until things calm down. Rose hugs Alice and Kara goodbye and asks Luther to take care of them. They begin their walk to Jericho. Meanwhile, Connor arrives at Ferndale Station. He begins following the same trail Markus once did in an attempt to reach Jericho, still trying to accomplish his mission and capture the deviants' leader, Markus. Kara, Alice, and Luther walk into Jericho, where the deviants have set up a base of operations. Media blares in the background, with news stations interviewing Detroit citizens who express their hatred for androids. Kara finds a warm spot for Alice to rest. She tells Luther she will go find Markus, but he reminds her there isn't much time until the last bus leaves. Luther attempts to tell Kara something important about Alice, but she brushes him off. Connor enters Jericho. As he walks around, he spots Kara on the second floor. He also investigates some tables in the middle of the room, noticing a large amount of C4, possibly rigged to blow up Jericho. As Connor searches, Kara continues to look for Markus and finds him upstairs. She explains that she is with a little girl and another android, and that they need passports to cross the border. Markus replies that Detroit is under curfew, with police rounding up all androids and sending them to deactivation camps. He suggests Kara stay in Jericho. Kara agrees, and Markus informs her that an android who formerly worked in the State Department can get them passports shortly. Markus questions Kara about the little girl she mentioned, pointing out that humans hate androids and asking why she is protecting her. Kara explains that they need each other, but chooses not to elaborate further. Now, as Kara makes her way downstairs, she's struck by an earth-shattering realization. She sees Alice, but something is off. This Alice is dressed differently and has an LED on her temple, confirming that she's an android. In a sudden flashback to Todd's room, Kara remembers the magazine she saw featuring a YK500 model android that looks exactly like Alice. In that moment, the truth becomes undeniable. The Alice she knows is also an android. Luther walks over and explains to Kara that she knew Alice was an android from the beginning but chose not to see her that way, explaining that Kara wanted to care for her, and Alice needed a mother, causing Kara to blind herself from reality. Luther asks if it even matters, saying that Alice loves her more than anything and that their bond gives them both meaning. Kara walks back to the Alice she's known the whole time, but initially seems distant. Alice asks Kara if something is wrong and if they'll be together forever. Kara says yes, and they share a hug. Luther watches, also becoming part of the family. In the command center at the top of Jericho, Markus, Josh, North, and Simon are panicking. They're running low on biocomponents, and the president has ordered the army to exterminate all androids. Josh blames Markus's decisions, saying non-violence could have avoided this. Markus defends his choices, saying he has no regrets and that the fight for freedom comes at a cost. He then decides it's time to free Detroit, doubling down on the decision to face the humans directly. Josh and Simon leave to go prepare. North and Markus have a private conversation, where North shares game-changing information. She tells Markus that a deviant who came to Jericho earlier stole a truck transporting radioactive material. He rigged it to explode and abandon it somewhere in downtown Detroit. North says she convinced him not to detonate the dirty bomb, and persuaded the deviant to give her the detonator. She offers Markus the detonator, saying that if things go wrong, the dirty bomb could be their last hope. Markus accepts it, saying he hopes to never use it. They kiss, and North tells him she doesn't want to lose him. As she leaves, Connor is seen hiding outside the room. He quickly reports to Amanda, who congratulates him on finding Jericho and its leader. She asserts that Connor must deal with Markus, but that he must be kept alive. Connor enters the room with his gun drawn, saying he has orders to capture Markus. In an attempt to convert Connor, Markus starts reasoning with him, saying Connor is one of them and can't betray his own kind. As Markus inches closer, he tries to convince Connor that humans don't see him as anything but a tool for their dirty work, that he is worth more than that. Markus claims he knows Connor, stating he's heard of him as a famous deviant hunter who always accomplishes his mission. Connor orders him to stay back. Markus continues planting seeds of doubt, asking if Connor has ever done anything irrational, trying to convince him that he can do more than his program allows, and can choose to be free. Markus announces to Connor that it's time to decide. In Connor's most critical moment, he breaks his programming, officially becoming deviant. You see, throughout his story, Connor has made many choices outside the bounds of his programming, destabilizing his software, allowing him to become deviant. With his newly acquired free will, Connor puts his gun down, officially betraying Amanda, abandoning his mission, and joining the deviants. He informs Markus that the army is going to attack Jericho and that they must act now. Kara and the other deviants hear helicopters and soldiers entering Jericho, and someone shouts that they must leave immediately. Agent Perkins oversees the operation from afar, joking that the androids are like rats in a maze. Kara, Luther, and Alice are running through the corridors of Jericho when Luther is shot in the leg. Markus, Connor, and North meet up in a corridor. North exclaims that all the deviants are trapped in Jericho and will be slaughtered. This prompts Markus to make a desperate decision, where he decides to blow up Jericho, hoping that if the ship starts to go down, it will force the humans to evacuate and buy time for the deviants to escape. North begs him not to go, saying the room to arm the bomb is deep in the cargo hold. Connor agrees, saying the army will stop at nothing to get Markus. Markus decides it's worth the risk and heads for the cargo hold. Kara runs back for Luther, but he tells her to continue without him. Kara decides to risk saving him. She brings him into a side room. Luther tells her to run, saying Alice matters more and that he'll catch up with them at the border. They leave Luther, but while running, they decide to hide in a room as deviants are gunned down around them. A deviant pounds on the door, begging to be let in. Alice wants Kara to open the door. Kara listens, but the deviant is shot immediately upon entry. Kara fights the soldier, and manages to neutralize him. Meanwhile, Markus continues to the cargo hold. Along the way, he sees two deviants about to be executed and intervenes, successfully knocking out the soldiers. He then sees Josh fighting with a soldier and again intervenes. Markus successfully defends Josh, telling him to find North. Kara and Alice finally reach the exit, but two soldiers begin spraying bullets into the crowd. Realizing they can't outrun them, Kara tells Alice to get down and play dead. The soldiers check bodies, but decide to move on. Kara and Alice successfully fool the soldiers, escaping Jericho. Markus finally reaches the hold. As he arms the bomb, soldiers break in. Despite being in a 1 versus 2, Markus successfully neutralizes both of them, arming the bomb and heading for the exit. Markus reunites with Simon, Josh, North, and Connor, saying the bomb is about to explode. As they run for the exit, North is shot in the back. Simon urges Markus to run, but Markus chooses to save her. He successfully defends her, and as more soldiers arrive, Connor steps in, neutralizing several of them. They all survive the attack on Jericho, jumping off the ship into the water. The inside of Jericho explodes. Agent Perkins, who was close behind, orders a soldier to alert everyone to evacuate, ending chapter 30. In chapter 31, after escaping Jericho, Markus decides to visit Carl. As he walks in, a robotic voice alerts him that the alarm has been deactivated, welcoming him home. Markus plays a voice message on Carl's answering machine. It turns out Leo survived Markus's assault on him. Leo explains that after his stay in the hospital, he has decided to give up drugs and that he is proud to be Carl's son. Markus heads upstairs to Carl's room but finds another android who is Carl's caretaker. Markus asks to see Carl, but the android says he isn't seeing anyone and that Markus needs to leave. Markus converts him, pleading to let him see Carl, which the android allows. Carl appears to be near death, but is happy to see Markus. Markus paints a grim outlook on the ongoing war between humans and deviants, saying he doesn't want to fight violence with violence but that he has no choice. Carl tries to console him, admitting he doesn't have any answers but tells Markus he must either accept the world as it is, or fight to change it. Carl calls Markus his son, even though they have different colors of blood. He tells Markus that when the world falls into darkness, some men have the courage to lead it out, and that Markus is one of those people. Markus leaves and heads to an abandoned church where some of the deviants have escaped too. He holds the detonator to the dirty bomb in his hand, contemplating what to do next. He decides to speak with his trusted group to check in on them. He first speaks with Simon, who says the people are counting on him and that they will follow him no matter what. Markus then apologizes to Kara and Alice, admitting he was wrong about them being safe in Jericho. He tells them they should leave Detroit while they still can. Kara agrees and says they will head for the bus to cross the border into Canada. She has one final word for Markus, asking him to save their people. Markus speaks with North about what to do next. He asks her about her bullet wound, but she says it didn't hit any critical biocomponents. North mentions that the next few hours are crucial and that a final decision must be made to save all androids. She tells Markus she loves him, sharing a peaceful moment, as it could be their last. Markus speaks with Josh, who thanks him for saving his life and says that he's happy he's alive to hopefully see his people secure freedom. Josh also says he's with Markus, no matter what he decides next. Finally, Markus speaks with Connor to decide his fate. Connor apologizes, saying it's his fault the humans found Jericho and that he should have known he was being used. He adds that he would understand if Markus chose not to trust him anymore. Markus, in a critical decision, chooses to trust Connor, claiming he is one of them now. Because Markus chooses to trust him, Connor reveals an extraordinary idea. Connor suggests he will infiltrate the Cyberlife Tower, where there are thousands more androids to awaken, potentially shifting the balance of power to the deviants. Markus thinks the idea is unhinged and that Connor will be killed if he goes there, but Connor explains that not everyone knows he's deviant and that Cyberlife likely still trusts him, allowing him access to the tower. Markus agrees with the idea, telling Connor to be careful. Markus makes a speech, telling the deviants that the time has come to make a critical choice between leading a peaceful demonstration or launching an all-out revolution. He decides to lead the deviants into revolution, launching an assault on the camps to liberate any remaining androids. The deviants cheer and shout Markus's name, ending chapter 31. In chapter 32, the final chapter of the game, President Christina Warren is giving a speech, declaring authoritarian rule over the country by disabling the right to assembly, enhancing the power of the armed forces, and ordering that all androids must be handed over and destroyed. Connor is on his way to the Cyberlife Tower, in an effort to awaken an army of androids in storage. He checks in with security and is let in. He arrives at the tower, where security orders him to follow them. Connor says he knows where to go, but security insists, saying they have their orders. Connor makes his way to an elevator, where the guard sets it to go to level 31, but Connor has plans to go to the warehouse on level 49. Connor notices a camera in the corner and disables it. He begins a fight with the guards, neutralizing both of them. He then changes the elevator's destination to the warehouse. Somewhere on the outskirts of Detroit, Kara and Alice are walking through the street, where Kara mentions they only have 20 minutes to make the last bus to the border. Kara spots a gun on the side of the road and decides to keep it. As they walk through the streets, they see androids being rounded up and executed. They sneak past the soldiers and spot Luther and Jerry on the verge of being executed. Kara decides they are worth saving. She grabs a nearby brick, inches closer, and knocks the soldier out. Alice hugs Luther, who explains he was going to meet them at the bus terminal but got caught along the way. They arrive at a security checkpoint. Luther suggests taking a detour, but says it will take longer. Kara says they have the passports and decides to risk going through the checkpoint. The guard asks for their identification, asserting that there is a curfew for all civilians. He asks them where they are going, and Kara uses Alice as an excuse, saying she was picking her up from a friend's house and that they are trying to get home. The guard notices Alice is trembling with fear, but Kara explains that Alice is sick with a bad flu. The guard allows them to pass but shouts for their attention. Kara and Luther decide not to panic. The guard says Alice dropped her glove and hands it to her, easing the tension, and continuing to the bus stop. Downtown, Markus begins making a speech to the other deviants, demanding freedom and declaring hostility until they liberate the androids at the camps. Markus begins a march through the streets, raising a flag with their symbol on it. He and a large group of deviants begin a violent assault. Back at the Cyberlife Tower, Connor reaches the warehouse. Around him are thousands of dormant androids. As Connor begins to convert them, another Connor, referred to here as Machine Connor, steps out, holding Hank hostage. Near the Canadian border, Kara, Luther, and Alice arrive at the bus station, where a soldier announces that only those with tickets will be allowed to board. Kara begins searching for a way onto the bus. During her search, she notices a television broadcasting Markus's assault downtown. Meanwhile, Alice wanders off to a woman holding her baby. The woman's husband arrives, telling her they are ready to board the bus. As the couple leaves, their bus tickets fall out of the woman's bag. Kara picks them up, but the couple returns, asking if they have seen their tickets. Kara lies and decides to keep them. Kara uses the tickets to board the bus, but Alice questions what will happen to the couple. Kara reluctantly reassures her that they will be fine, even though she is unsure herself. All three board the bus and head for the border. Downtown, news stations begin reporting on Markus's coordinated attack. Markus gives the official signal to charge, leading to a struggle for control of an android deactivation camp. Markus neutralizes several soldiers, but as they move forward, Josh is hit. Some deviants provide cover fire while Markus saves Josh, but he has been shot in a critical biocomponent. Josh gives his final words, saying the blood they spill will be on their hands, before shutting down. As they press on, Simon updates Markus that they have lost many of their people. Simon is shot while trying to move into cover. Markus advances, but decides saving Simon is too risky and leaves him for dead. North and Markus regroup, and North claims they are close to the camp. As they continue forward, a tank nearly kills Markus, sending him flying. At the Cyberlife Tower, Machine Connor forces Deviant Connor to choose between saving Hank or continuing the android revolution. Deviant Connor tries to bluff, claiming Hank means nothing to him, but Machine Connor doesn't believe him. Deviant Connor tries to convince Machine Connor that he doesn't have to follow orders, but Machine Connor remains resolute, declaring he is a machine designed to complete his mission, just as Deviant Connor once was. Deviant Connor backs up. Hank seizes the opportunity and struggles for Machine Connor's gun, allowing Deviant Connor to draw his own. Both Connors shoot each other in the shoulder. Deviant Connor charges, and a fight begins. During the struggle, Hank demands they stop, pointing his gun at them. In the chaos, Hank loses track of who is who. The right side Connor immediately claims to be the real one, but the left side Connor suggests Hank ask them something only the real Connor would know. Hank asks where they first met. Right side Connor immediately responds Jimmy's bar, and that they went to investigate a homicide that night. Left side Connor whispers to himself that the other Connor has uploaded his memory. Hank asks what his dog's name is. Left side Connor quickly answers Sumo, which is correct. Hank then asks a final critical question only the real Connor would know, asking what his son's name is. Left side Connor replies Cole. He explains how Cole had just turned 6 at the time of the accident and that a truck lost control on an icy road and crashed into them. He says no human was available for emergency surgery, so an android attempted to save Cole, but failed, fueling Hank's hatred of androids. However, Hank corrects part of the story, saying the human surgeon was too high on red ice to operate, and that the human, not the android, was responsible for Cole's death. Right side Connor tries to plead with Hank, but Hank shoots him. Hank turns to the real Connor, stating that maybe he really is alive, and leaves him to convert all the androids. Connor begins converting one, setting off a chain reaction, each android awakening and passing on the deviant programming like a virus, creating an entire army. Back downtown, Markus recovers after nearly being killed by the tank. He neutralizes several more soldiers before picking up an RPG and blowing up the tank. The soldiers begin retreating from the camp. North steps forward, claiming victory, but Markus says it isn't the end, only the beginning of a war. At the border, Kara steps off the bus to the grim realization that it is not taking them into Canada, but to a border control center for proper vetting. Once inside, Kara sees that security is performing temperature checks, which would expose them as androids. She sees Jerry, the deviant from the abandoned amusement park. Jerry turns to Kara and wirelessly communicates to her that because she once saved his life, he is willing to sacrifice himself as a distraction to get them through. Kara continues searching and spots Rose in the distance, who pretends not to know her. Rose and Kara exchange glances and meet in the bathroom. Rose enters the bathroom and explains she saw the Jericho raid on television and feared they hadn't made it out. Kara asks what Rose is doing there. Rose says the government is going door to door looking for androids and that her house is no longer safe since she was harboring deviants. Kara begins to panic, saying they won't make it through security because everyone is being scanned, but Rose reassures her, saying she must find a way. Kara reunites with Luther at the line, where the person in front of them is being scanned. Trying to stay calm, they walk up to the border officer and hand over their passports. The officer notices Alice looks scared and asks if she's alright. Before they can respond, Jerry courageously sacrifices himself as a distraction. Alice screams in fear. The officer notices Alice's reaction, reassures her that she doesn't need to be afraid, and comments that there are no androids in Canada. Moved by Alice's emotions, he assumes they are human and allows them entry, welcoming them to Canada. News stations report on the downtown assault, calling it an unprecedented disaster. One anchor says many androids have arrived from the Cyberlife Tower and that citizens are reported to be fleeing Detroit in a mass exodus. President Christina Warren appears on the broadcast, explaining that to prevent mass civilian casualties, she has ordered the armed forces to retreat. She proclaims the events in Detroit have forever changed the world, and that humanity must now share the planet with a new intelligent life form. Connor and Markus meet in the street where Connor congratulates him. North steps up beside Markus, claiming they have achieved freedom and that the deviants want a speech. Markus begins his speech, proclaiming that there is still more work to do. But as he speaks, Connor is pulled into the Zen garden. Confused, he speaks with Amanda. Amanda reveals that Connor becoming deviant was part of the plan all along, and they only had to wait for the right moment to resume control of his program, explaining that he has actually completed his mission. Amanda disappears, leaving Connor trapped. Connor recalls an audio flashback from when he and Hank were leaving Elijah Kempsky's house, where Kempsky said he always leaves an emergency exit in his programs. Connor has a eureka moment, realizing the inconspicuous rock he activated earlier is the exit. He finds it, exiting the Zen garden. As he snaps out of it, Markus is still giving his speech, but Connor realizes his gun is drawn. Amanda had tried to use him to assassinate Markus and crush the revolution. As Markus finishes his speech, it remains unclear who RA9 truly is. There are a few theories, starting with Markus, who led the revolution, Connor, who awakened the android army at Cyberlife, or Kara, as she was the first known android to become deviant. In the final scene, Kara is seen hugging Alice, saying they are finally free, bringing an end to chapter 32 and closing an incredible story, in which all three main androids survive, along with most sub-characters, with only Josh and Simon not surviving. If you've made it to the end, thank you for watching. Feel free to share your thoughts, such as your theory on who RA9 truly is, your favorite character, the most impactful decisions, or any plot holes you may have noticed. Until next time, take care.